Kubrat Pulev has announced a date and venue for his IBF final eliminator against Hughie Fury. The date is October 27th and the venue will be Sofia, Bulgaria, which is Kubrat Pulev's home country. A lot of people were wondering whether Hughie Fury would take this fight, particularly with it being in Bulgaria. Hughie Fury, it has to be said, does have a history of pulling out of fights. You may remember that he pulled out of turning down a lot of fights and pulling out of others. You may remember that he pulled out of the first scheduled Joseph Parker fight, which was set to take place in New Zealand. And when the fight eventually went ahead, it took place in Manchester, which is Hughie's hometown, or at least his home county. So we'll see if the fight actually goes ahead. If Hughie Fury goes through with it or pulls out, we'll find out. If he goes ahead with the fight, how will he cope in hostile territory in Bulgaria? Will he be himself? Will he be able to box as slick and elusively as he normally does? Will he be more aggressive? What are his chances of winning the fight? It's actually quite an interesting fight. I don't expect it to be exciting. Neither guy is a prolific puncher. Kubrat Pulev, you'd have to imagine, is perhaps coming to the end of his, maybe not the end of his career, but the end of his time as being a top 10 contender. How old is Kubrat Pulev now? He must be, pushing 40? So I can't imagine he's got too much time left at the top. I can't imagine that he's better now than he was, 2-3 years ago. Certainly not in terms of his, being in his athletic prime. Sometimes fighters can be in their technical prime, in their mental prime, without being in their athletic prime. Lennox Lewis would be an example of that. Lennox Lewis's physical prime, his athletic prime, was when he was in his late 20s. If you go look at Lennox Lewis versus Razor Ruddock and then compare it to Lennox Lewis versus Evander Holyfield, you're going to see against Razor Ruddock, he just looked more athletic. He looked faster. He looked sharper. His movement was better. He looked more fluid. Yeah, when he fought Razor, I think he was 27 when he fought Ruddock. And he was in his 30s, I think 33, 34 by the time he fought Holyfield. So, although Lewis was no longer in his athletic prime by the time he fought Holyfield, he'd improved technically and he'd improved mentally. So overall, he was a better fighter by the time he fought Holyfield. Will Kubrat Pulev overall be a better fighter now than he was a couple of years ago? Will it even matter? Is one fighter or the other just substantially better and therefore are going to win the fight regardless? I say this is an interesting fight because you'd have to imagine it's going to be a chess match. Kubrat Pulev's best punch is his jab. He has, I don't want to say a typical Eastern European style because most of the Eastern Europeans don't really fight like this anymore, but he's maybe got an old school Eastern European style where he stands up very tall, fences with the jab, lots of in and out movement. He doesn't really have much on his power punches. He don't really have much of a hook, much of a straight right hand. He tends to loop his right hand actually rather than throw it straight. And if he catches you right, he can shake you up a little bit, but he's definitely not known as a knockout puncher. He's certainly not a prolific puncher. So you would expect this fight to go the distance against Hughie Fury unless somebody gets cut. And you'd expect it to be a battle of the jabs. Both guys have actually got fantastic jabs, not only Kubrat Pulev. I think Hughie Fury's jab is faster than Pulev's jab, but I think Pulev's jab is more powerful, more authoritative than Hughie Fury's jab. Pulev has rocked people's heads back. He's even dropped people with jabs. I remember when he fought Matt Skelton early on in his career, he actually dropped Matt Skelton with a jab to the body, right? So he's got a very hard jab and he's very good at messing with the range and just messing opponents about in general, Kubrat Pulev. He's good at that. Yeah, he's good at messing opponents around and frustrating them, but so is Hughie Fury. So, I don't know, maybe it's going to be an absolute stinker between the two of them if it goes ahead. We'll see. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Kubrat Pulev versus Hughie Fury. Who's going to win this fight? What kind of fight can we expect? And maybe it'll be one of those fights that surprises us when you get two technicians in the ring. It doesn't always result in a boring fight. Sometimes it turns into a slugfest. I mean, if you look at a famous slugfest between two guys who were more boxers than punchers, more technicians than sluggers, look at the fight from the 1990s between Frankie Lyles and Tim Littles. The fight that took place in the UK, two Americans, but the fight took place in the UK. Go have a look at that fight. It turned out to be fireworks when a lot of people suspected it was going to be a bit cagey because, as I say, the guys were boxers, not really brawlers or KO artists necessarily. So could it be that? Pulev versus Hughie Fury, or will it be what most people I think are expecting, which is a bit of a snooze fest? Let me know how you feel in the comment section below about everything I've talked about in this video. Alright, it's Hatman, I'm out.